the Roman Empire is always a great story for us. And I compare the Ukraine war to the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest, which is AD 9.
Yep.
And in AD 9, the Roman Empire reached its limits on the Rhine. It tried to conquer the Germanic tribes. In 9 AD, they were defeated under Augustus. And there were sporadic border things from then on, but they never tried again. They had hundreds of years where that just wasn't their business. It was very, very smart. Hadrian, in the second century AD, was the emperor at the maximum extent of the Roman Empire, and he basically wanted stability across the border lines. And this was the prudence of the empire. It wasn't. Alexander, was very different. 400 years earlier, he wanted to conquer the whole world. There was no limit. Finally, his soldiers told him, "If you go any further, we're killing you. We've got to go home," because they were already beyond the Indus River. But the Romans said, "No, we're going to put some boundaries. We're going to keep the borders, and we're going to not go beyond our means or our needs." I hope what happened yesterday was a good example of that. What Trump and Hegseth did yesterday, if they follow through, if the deep state doesn't undermine it, if it's some crazy thing doesn't happen, said, we don't need to be in Ukraine with NATO. We don't need to be. It's for us, it's nothing. And it doesn't mean that Russia's now going to invade Western Europe. That's crazy. This was a project going the other direction. So it's basic prudence. And that's what a great power should show. Prudence.
What are the chances that you said, unless the deep state does something, some crazy thing happens? I would note that for a good part of the presidential campaign, the deep state was telling the candidate, Donald Trump, that the state of Iran is trying to kill you, which as far as I know was totally untrue, by the way. But they were telling him that in order to prepare him to attack Iran, which they're still trying to do. So we know that this kind of deception is just a feature of it. How hard will people invested in the Ukraine war go? I mean, to what lengths will they go to continue this, do you think?
First of all, the main job of a U.S. president, of a successful U.S. president, is to put the foot on the brake. This is, if you look in history, the good presidents know when to stop. Eisenhower was such, Kennedy was such, Reagan understood this, and all our recent presidents did not, up until now, basically.
Well, Truman in Korea, George H.W. Bush in Kuwait, I mean, also true.
No, that they fought too many wars, in my view.
Yeah, but they did stop.
But they stopped, but they made too much. Iraq 2003. I mean, there were just too many wars. So the question is, can we learn, and can the president keep the foot on the brake? If he does, he will have an extremely successful administration. He, I think, understands that all of Netanyahu's pleading, and this has been 30 years also, this is another project for the U.S. to go to war with Iran, is just the worst idea imaginable, would be a disaster. And so I think President Trump understands that. I think he understands that a war with China would be a complete disaster, which it would be, though there's a lot of war party around on that. The funny thing about our time right now, not funny, the wonderful thing about our time right now is that we're in the midst of the biggest technological boom in the history of the world. So many good things could happen in the next 10 to 20 years. President Trump has used the expression, which I fully subscribe to, a golden age. We could have it. A golden age is not war. A golden age is investing in all this wonderful technology so that we can have healthcare that works, education systems that work, infrastructure that works. It would be nice if the United States even had 1 kilometer of fast rail, just saying. China just completed its 50,000th kilometer of fast rail. We don't have one. I can't even take the train reliably from New York to, actually from Washington to New York. Last time I took the Excella, it broke down in the middle, and I had to change to a local in New Jersey, which does not happen between Shanghai and Beijing, by the way, just saying.
But you missed the countryside. I mean, that is part of it, though.
That's it.
Not a lot of incentive to stop in New Jersey, and now they're giving you one.
There I was. I felt so privileged.
Right.
And there was the local right on the next track waiting for us.
And you wouldn't have been in Passaic otherwise, so
Exactly.
lucky you.
You count your blessings, right?
So the whole point of market capitalism is consumer choice. You have a choice between products and services, and the competition between companies makes the goods and services better. That's the core idea. Unfortunately, there are an awful lot of monopolies out there. Monopolies are not good for consumers. They are not good for you. And one of the places where there's effectively a monopoly is in wireless contracts, but it's not a complete monopoly. You're probably paying way too much to use your cell phone, but now you have a choice. You don't have to pay $100 a month just to get a free phone. That's not a good deal. There's a company called Pure Talk, which we use, that has no inflated prices. With a qualifying plan of just $45 a month, you can choose a free phone, an iPhone 14 or a Samsung Gallery. Then you get unlimited talk, text, 25 gigs of data, which is enough for most people, a mobile hotspot, all for that low price. And it's got the most dependable 5G network. So you get your free iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy by visiting puretalk.com/Tucker, and you switch to Pure Talk today. America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
It does feel, I'm glad that you are saying this, because it does feel like we're not even a month into the Trump administration. I don't think anybody agrees with, everything of anyone else's program, but clearly this is a massive departure from what we had, much more than I thought. I feel like I watched pretty closely. I'm amazed by the ambition of what they're doing, and it does feel like the only way to stop this, Tulsi Gabbard just confirmed yesterday as the director of national intelligence.
That's a very big deal.
It's unbelievable.
It's a very big deal.
Tulsi Gabbard's writing the president's daily brief. Tulsi Gabbard is in charge of a lot of declassification efforts. Like, the whole thing is unbelievable. The only way to stop this is with a war. I mean, that's my kind of simple reading of it. Do you agree with that?
I think that is exactly, entirely the point. And if, and we had news today, please, inshallah, that the ceasefire will continue on Saturday because more hostages will be released, more exchanges will take place, and there won't be a return. Really, inshallah, if it happens and an outbreak of war is stopped, because it has to be stopped, this will be such a blessing, not only for this region, but I have to say for our country too, the United States.
I agree.
And so this is really the key moment. And I think Trump's instincts are there. And what he says, we didn't even hear Biden or other presidents say. President Trump said many times about Ukraine, too many people are dying. You didn't even hear those words. I mean, the idea that war involved, by the way, maybe 1 million Ukrainians dead or seriously wounded, we're going to find out in the next months, because finally we'll see what reality is, not what the propaganda is, but it's horrible what's happened. So that instinct is essential. And there are several places where everything could be derailed. This region is one of them. Ukraine is another. South China and East China Sea is the third. And if the president gets it and has the basic idea we live together in respect with other countries, the golden age will come.
I think, and I'd love your view of this. I think of all the amazing things I've seen in the last 3.5 weeks, maybe the most amazing is the emergence of Steve Witkoff, who I will say I know personally and like enormously, but who was a real estate guy. Okay, all of a sudden Trump appoints him an envoy, sort of over and above the massive stable of diplomats we have, professional diplomats at the State Department, to go do, effect a ceasefire here in this region, and then sends him over to Russia, and he winds up meeting with Putin apparently for several hours. And then all this stuff happens. You've been around diplomats your entire life. You've functioned as a diplomat. What do you think of that?
Look, he did the single coolest thing since this administration started, I have to say, which was Trump made this ceasefire. There's no question about it. Biden would never, he didn't make the ceasefire because we don't know where Biden was mentally anyway, but his team was completely incompetent. Horrible. I'm sorry to say it. It's very terrible.
A lot of the rest of us did notice that.
Yes, it wasn't a completely it wasn't a completely closely held secret, let's say. So Trump said, we got to have a ceasefire before my inauguration. And he sent Witkoff. And Witkoff said to Netanyahu, I'm coming to meet you tomorrow. And Netanyahu said, no, tomorrow is Saturday. I can't meet you. And Witkoff said, I'll be in your office tomorrow at 1. And told him, I don't care anything. I'm there. We're going to have a discussion. And out of that meeting came the ceasefire. Now, the ceasefire looks maybe like it will hold this weekend. Believe me, in Israel, they want war everywhere for a lot of reasons. But the president's job, from my point of view of American interest and the world interest and this region's interest, everybody's interest, no more war. Stop this now. So if Witkoff can keep that track record, that would be the heroic success.
But what does it tell you that Steve Witkoff, who I will say, again, I'm biased because I really like him, he's got a great personality, super energetic, very straightforward, believable, but zero training in any of this, like none. He's a real estate guy. And he pulls this off? Like, what does that tell you about our professional diplomatic corps?
I'll tell you one thing it tells you. Trump can make peace if he wants to make peace. I mean, he needs a capable guy that can go and read the Riot Act and say this is no joke and we're going to have it. And that is basically what good diplomacy is. And again, in the U.S. system, of course, we've got the deep state who tell presidents what to do. We've got lobbies. We've got all sorts of things. But a president's true job is to lead. And if you don't have a president compos mentis, like I think we didn't have in the United States, you get war breaking out everywhere like we had in the last 2 years. Or if you have a president that is poorly directed or poorly, really doesn't get it. And Clinton was an inconsequential president, in my opinion, because he is so easily swayed. He just made so many lousy decisions. George Bush Jr. listened to Cheney, who was really a nonstop warmonger, and so on. If a president gets the idea, I want peace because this war is really destructive of everything else I'm trying to do, then you can have peace, actually. It's possible. No one is going to attack the United States. So peace depends on us. No one is attacking us. China is not about to invade the United States. Russia's not going to attack the United States. Mexico and Canada are not going to attack the United States. Panama's not going to attack the United States. Greenland's not going to attack the United States.
Whoa.
I'm sorry to make, I don't want to go the whole list, but I'm just confident about this. So if the president wants peace, he'll get it. If he gets peace, believe me, he'll get all the other things that he wants, like low inflation, being able to pass the budget that he wants, getting his tax policies that he wants. But if there's war, he ain't gonna get any of it. That's the basic point. And, you know, I voted Democratic in 2020. I voted for Biden. And Biden, I've had a lot of experience with governments over the last 45 years, so I watch them, and I think I understand a lot of them. And Biden, in the first days, said stupid things about foreign policy. The world is divided between this and blah, blah, blah. And you say, oh my God, what is, the guy doesn't get it. And in fact, he didn't get it at all. And I told many Democratic leaders when they still talk to me, now they don't talk to me and I don't talk to them, you're going to do something completely, almost impossible in American politics, which is you're going to lose on the basis of foreign policy. Because Americans don't vote on foreign policy.
No.
And I said, your foreign policy is so bad, this is going to bring you down. And in fact, the Democrats lost their heads in this, and they were so intent on defeating Trump that no matter what Biden said, well, we have to back him up 100%, as he led them off to war and complicity in the war here and the Ukraine war and tensions with China and all the rest. And they created a milieu of so much unhappiness in the United States, anxiety, higher inflation, big budget deficits, that the public said, no, we don't like this. So they did really the impossible.
But they brought Liz Cheney over to the coalition.
Yeah, exactly. And then what's ironic is, you know, this wonderful person who was confirmed yesterday for the head of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who's really smart, by the way, very honest, very meticulous. I know her extremely well over many, many years. Totally up and up, so I'm delighted she's going to be briefing the president each day. I couldn't think of a better person. All the Democrats voted against her. This is crazy. She was their colleague for decades. She stood up for things that they should be applauding her for. Every one of them voted against her.
She was the vice chairman of the DNC.
Exactly.
8 years ago.
Exactly.
So I guess the question is, the opposition, you've alluded to the deep state, but there's also the out in the open state. You know, the Congress, for example, the other party, the Democratic Party. Does Trump's success, not just in the election, winning the popular vote, but in affecting peace, which is actually popular with people, does that change their views on foreign policy? Like, does he bring people with him? Or does he stand alone between the two parties as he did in the first term?
Look, this is very early days because we're just a little over 3 weeks into this. But if yesterday turns into policy, which it could, and the Ukraine war ends soon, which it could, you're going to see everybody changing their views. Oh, I didn't support that. Peace is great. The European leaders are going to be saying the opposite of what they're saying right now. Look, in 100 politicians, anyway, 3 think. The rest line up somewhere tactically. So yes, they will change their view. They'll complain about other things. That's their job. They're in the opposition. But this war was a disastrous, stupid project that went awry, should have ended, makes no sense. And if Trump pulls it off, as he can, if he's resolute now and clear-minded, and Witkoff does his work, because he'll be the one to do it, it looks like, and he does his work, then this won't be talked about or complained about. This will pass into history as just another one of those blunders. I mean, we don't talk about the 2003 Iraq War or the 20 years waste in Afghanistan or so many, Libya, so many completely ridiculous projects that America's been involved in for no conceivable reason other than these weird game of risk ideas. We got to own that space on the board. Turns out the world and that game board are rather different. But if Trump pulls this off, what he needs, I think, and what we need to understand is the American scene, it ain't great in general. The budget deficit is enormous. The fragility of society is actually quite significant. There is lots of depression, lots of violence, lots of problems that haven't been addressed for 30 years. Big budget deficit, huge. Can't be solved. With all due respect to Elon, it's not, the budget deficit has very little to do with the size of the civil service. That's not where the budget deficit comes from. That's not where the spending comes from. Spending comes from 750 overseas military bases, from wars, from massive outlays, of course, on pensions, on health care, on interest payments on the debt, and so forth. So war derails all of that. We're not with a buffer. We're not where the US dollar is king forever. It's almost the opposite, by the way, although it's not so clear to people. But 10 years from now, it's going to be a completely different international monetary scene from the one that we have now, because the renminbi is going to play a completely different role. And the way that international settlements will be done is completely different. You can, if you watch like I do, you see all of the stitching together of a new system taking shape. So the US does not have this great room for maneuver, and it's all a game, and we can do this and we can do that. The president needs to be really accurate right now, really accurate, and understand also don't overplay the hand. The world's not desperately waiting to get into the US market, as I think he thinks, that these tariffs give all this leverage. No, the US is not the big deal that maybe some people imagine right now. So we got to get our act together, and you can't get your act together in war. That's the bottom line.
Professor Jeffrey Sachs, thank you very much.
Great to be with you.
Thanks.
Thank you.